Hey, John Gilroy here. Tom Cruise is famous for saying, "Show me the money." We got a different Tom in the studio today. Tom Voshell from Coupa going to talk about the federal budget and show me the money. Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. I've done over 1,000 interviews. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of tech companies. And usually, if you had a word cloud, that thing optimize would pop in. Optimize speed, optimize storage, optimize this, optimize software development. And I rarely use the word optimize when it comes to spending money. I mean, you can't buy storage unless you spend money somehow. And so I wanted to bring Tom into the studio today and talk about his company, Coupa, and what it means for helping the federal government making this big digital transformation. And that's the phrase that pays is digital transformation, but you can't do it. If you got to optimize your resources in the cloud, you should optimize your spend going to the cloud. Our guest is Tom Voshell from Coupa. He is officially the Vice President Federal Program Office, and he's got a lot of experience in this, and we could talk about how the federal government can optimize their spend. So, Tom, are you Tom Cruise or Tom Voshell? Which Tom are you today?
Today I'm Tom Voshell. I don't look anything like Tom Cruise, so I don't get those benefits. How are you this morning, John?
Good. Optimize. I think that's the focus here to optimizing spend. And when we did the prep call for this, I took some notes and I look at my notes and I go, I must have written something down because we talked about the GSA and using cards for spending. And the GSA spends is number $4 billion on these cards. Is that right?
That's correct. When we're talking about cards, we're talking about P cards. Yeah. So these are basically the credit cards the government uses for small dollar spends. And yes, it's public information. The GSA spends over $4 billion on those cards, and they get associated credit rebates back for that as well.
Yeah, and what a rebate with $4 billion. And how is that managed? How do you structure the spend like that? I mean, how are they doing it now?
Well, the way P cards are managed, there's a person in the office that's responsible for the P card. They have training on what they can use, how it can be used, et cetera. So somebody wants to buy something. Let's say you need a new laptop. So they go to the P card holder and say, hey, I need a new laptop. The P card holder says, okay, we're going to authorize that $1,500 to go buy a new laptop, and we're going to put it on the card. So they contact CDW, example, CDW government. They put an order in for the laptop, and it's paid on that card. That's as simple as it works, just that way. Now, the P card holder is responsible for making sure that that purchase meets all the rules. But the key thing that we're going to talk about today is that is an after-the-fact spend or a reactive spend versus a proactive spend. And when I say proactive spend, saying, hey, I want to spend something. Has it gone through approvals? Do we have a contract to buy something like that at a contracted price, et cetera? When you use a P card, it's more of it's a reactive spend is saying, hey, I want to buy this. It fits the requirements for me to be able to purchase it on a P card, but then I'm responding to that expense after it's made, not before it's made.
So is that called a managed spend? Is that the term used?
Managed spend would be the proactive spend. So managed spend is the looking at it and saying, hey, can I get a better deal on this because I have a contract in place or I have suppliers that have agreed to provide this for me for uniformity purposes, those kinds of things. When you think of a P card or the reactive type spend, it's like, hey, I need something. I'm going to go out on Amazon. I'm going to buy it. All right.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to anybody except the fact that it is under the threshold that I'm available to buy. So, I buy something off Amazon. I don't have to talk to my wife about it. But if I want to go out and spend, $1,000, $2,000, I better talk to my wife about it, or I'm going to be in trouble when the bill comes in.
Well, Tom, my little brain works like this. Well, the copier needs toner. I'm going to get out my P card and get some toner. Bang. Physical comes in the door. That's traditionally. However, now what we see happening is we see people buying services like that. And we see individuals acquiring services that may not, the people in the information technology area may not be aware of. And so you have some rogue activities taking place. And this is like, the image I have now is like a volcano and the lava coming like, whoa, we're out of control here. I mean, that's got to be an issue in many agencies.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of what we would classify as a rogue spend. And it's a service. So I need some maintenance work done. All right. I'm going to use the odd example of there's some bushes around the building need to be trimmed. So I need a landscaper to do that work. Well, the agency has a contract with a landscaper, but my brother-in-law does landscaping as well. So I'm going to contract my brother-in-law to come in, trim the bushes. Nothing wrong with that. He gives me a good price for it, and I give him the P card to pay for that. Well, what I don't know, I didn't know that there was a contract in place for a maintenance company that would have come in and done that for half the price my brother-in-law charged for it. So that's what we mean by rogue spend is I'm spending something without the knowledge of how I could have saved money for that purchase. What the end result of managing rogue spend is that by having those savings, I can then repurpose those monies for other programs in the agencies. So if I'm buying something for $10 when I could have bought it for $8, that means I have $2 I can put on another program. That's simply by changing it from rogue spend to managed spend. It doesn't stop the spend because it's a valid thing. I need those bushes trimmed. That's a valid expense. But it's how the expense is managed, or you want to say optimized, is that I optimized the spend by using it against the contract that I had, and I still gave the user the same ability to get that material or get that service simply. It didn't become complex.
There is a podcast in town called Feds at the Edge, and they talk about edge computing. They talk about FEMA, military, and all kinds of edge. Now we're talking about edge computing. We're talking edge storage and artificial intelligence applied to the edge. Well, what about John Gilroy? And I'm working for BLM, and I'm in Utah somewhere, and I just get out that credit card. And how do you control someone remote like that to make sure that they abide by the rules, to make it proactive instead of reactive, I guess? Is that the phrasing, I guess?
Yeah, that's the way. So let's break Coupa down, or the federal government down, and how Coupa applies to it in two big areas. There's two ways the government spends money. One is what I call a complex acquisition, and the other is a simplistic acquisition. What we've been talking about so far with P cards is the simplistic acquisition. How can I buy something that is under the minimum purchase threshold? I can buy it easily, right? So that guy out in Utah that's looking at this, how do they make sure that they're aware of the contracts, where I can get these services? Well, what Coupa can do from that is we present up catalogs. So someone goes into Coupa, they say, I'm looking for landscape services, and I'm looking for landscape services at this location. We know all the contracts that are out there, all the line items that are in the contract, so the pricing that's available, and we present it up to them, and they go, okay, that's the one I want. Now, that has taken that spend and said, okay, I'm now putting it against a contract versus I'm just finding whoever can do the service and paying them. And now I can put it through an approval process that says, hey, it's $5,000. Get your manager to sign off on $5,000. And it goes through that workflow, and the person comes in, does the work, and gets paid. So that's what we mean by having a managed spend, and that's the simplistic side of it. So the rogue spend happens there because it's easy for me to just say, go up to Amazon versus Amazon Business, which is providing reduced prices to the government. I go to my personal Amazon site, I look up something, and then I use the P card to pay for it, versus going up to the Amazon government site. Amazon now knows that this was bought, so that's going volume against the contract, which manages discounts that the government gets. All of those things then key off the moment you have managed spend. So you get a better price, you get awareness of the spend, and those spends that are not on contract, that don't have something available, I now get visibility into what am I spending? What am I buying? And maybe I need to go get a contract for those materials because I'm getting a lot of that being purchased. That's the visibility into it, is I get to see what is being spent, where it's being spent, how much I'm spending on it. And then I can start looking at what suppliers I can get that can give me a reduced price, produce a spending on that or a savings on that. And then that savings gives me funds that I can repurpose for other agency efforts. And that's really the key, because we were talking about GSA with $4 billion worth of spend on P cards. Now, just run the numbers on that. If you could optimize just 25% of that, $1 billion, and you say by optimizing it, turning it into proactive spend, save 10%. That's a lot of money that you can put into other programs that otherwise you wouldn't have been able to, and you still purchase the same products, materials, and services.
Well, I don't think this is just a problem in the federal government. Coupa deals all kinds of commercial organizations as well. It just seems to be an activity that takes place with larger organizations. I work for, Lockheed Martin for a while. I worked for another big company called Exxon for a while. It just is something that it's something that happens over a period of time, and people just assume it. And I think maybe the best example of this was with COVID, when people had to do something quick, and all of a sudden they go into something else, and all of a sudden, old Tom looks at John's budget from 2020 and goes, "Well, what did you do here?"
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe if there had been ahead of time, we'd have some kind of structure to it.
Well, the COVID and the PPE is a prime example of this. People were buying PPE wherever they could get it. They didn't know that contracts had been set up to provide this material. And just simple awareness of that those contracts were there, they would have been able to order off the contracts. They still would have gotten the same material. They would have got the approved materials versus I just went out and I bought something. And that gets into some of that complex spend. The complex spend has to be done under RFP. So you've got to do requirements gathering. You have to understand what you're going to buy, and then it's going to be issued out, and vendors are going to come in with that. So understanding what you want to buy, what are all the aspects of it? What are the requirements that are going to go into it? How are you going to evaluate that once the RFPs come in and you're looking at vendors? That's another area that Coupa can help with as well. And so we can go across the spectrum. As you said, in corporate America, just simply applying the business rules for someone to buy something, making sure that the right approvals happen at the right levels. So, hey, you're a director in the company, you're approved to buy anything up to $700. You buy it, you've said, I want it, it gets approved. You want to buy something that's $10,000, well, your manager has approval. You want to buy something that's $50,000, your vice president and your manager both have to approve it. It's simple things like that.
Yeah.
That help manage where the money goes to make sure that you're spending it as optimally as possible. Coupa has seen, across corporate America, huge savings just by having that visibility into the spend and knowing where you want to put an additional contract in or go negotiate rates on an existing contract because you have that visibility into it. And we can do the same thing for the federal government.
I do know the podcast on satellites in space and interviewing a woman from the White House strategy office with satellites. It's a big topic in this town. And NASA, I think it has some innovation. I did some research on this. There's something called the NASA Acquisition Innovation Launchpad. So are you familiar with this? This looks like a reaction to try and manage spend as well.
That's what it is. And we've been talking to them about bringing Coupa into it. It's the exact same thing. They're looking at that and saying, how do we get visibility into this? How do we manage it, not control it, but manage it to make sure that we're buying the right products at the right price through the right contract vehicles?
It seems if you look at 135 different federal agencies, maybe each one of them has a culture of acquisition that may or not be open to, I don't want to use the word reform, but maybe a better word called improvement. So what's the pushback you get, Tom, when you walk into Progressive Insurance in Ohio and say, hi, I'm Tom from Coupa. Let's look at your expense. I mean, is there a lot of pushback there, or people say we've always done it this way, or what's a normal obstacle that comes in with introducing your service?
Well, when you get in any organization, but we'll talk about corporate America. When you're coming into it, the pushback, you really don't get it because you're talking to the business level, the C level of the organization. They're looking at where their funds go, especially if it's a public company. They need to respond back to Wall Street. So they're looking to spend every dollar as efficiently as they possibly can. So you have the upper level organization that is saying, okay, we want to bring Coupa in, bring this business spend management application in so that we can see how we're spending our money and we can then optimize it for high efficiency. When it gets to the users, what the users see once Coupa is implemented is that, hey, it's easier for me to find and buy something. I don't have to try to, what is the complex process? I can do guided buying. Hey, I want to buy this. Okay, here's where you can buy it from. Here's the prices you can buy it from. Okay, I want that. Here's who has to approve it. Okay, I see that John needs to approve my expense. I want to buy it, click, and everything flows through. So from a user, they go from I don't know what the process is, or I've learned it, so that is my value to the company is I know our complex internal processes, to something that, hey, it's easy, it's open for you to go buy things. Very similar to saying, I just want to go up, I'm going to look on Amazon. Well, instead of Amazon, I see Amazon, Office Depot, Staples as 3 choices, and CDW as a 4th choice for me to say, well, where do I want to buy from? Well, I really don't see, I'm not picking each one where I would go to each website and look and say, what's the price? Everything comes up and says, well, what do you want to buy? Well, I want to buy a ream of paper. Here's all the places you can buy a ream of paper. Here's the preferred location. Here's the preferred price. You say, but I need special paper. So I'm going to buy this other ream, not the generic ream. But that is all invisible. It's just one catalog to you. I look through it. I buy it. I'm done. So that we don't get the pushback from the users. We actually get high adoption from the users because it makes their lives easier.
In the world of software, all kinds of innovation taking place. You mentioned the word artificial intelligence. There's probably 50 products in the last 50 minutes. I don't know, 50 days for sure. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to acquisition, how does Coupa keep up with all the stuff that's out there that's available? I'm sure if you go to Google and type in artificial intelligence, you get page after page after page. So, So how do you keep up with the new trends and new developments?
Well, actually, artificial intelligence is something has been built into Coupa from day one, and we're moving.
That's turning the tables, isn't it?
But we're moving forward and taking strong advantage of it. Consider this: Coupa, with all these companies that are buying things through Coupa, we have visibility into that spend. That's one of the things we get an agreement from the company is we can see what they're buying and who they're buying it from. So we have over $1 trillion worth of spend going through Coupa every year. Now, looking at that, we can genericize that, and I'll use the concept of the ream of paper. We've got 1,000 corporations that buy paper for their printers. So we're not looking at what does Exxon buy. We're looking at what do these 1,000 companies buy, who are they buying it from, what prices are they buying it from, and we can then provide that information back to the other companies that say, hey, did you know instead of spending $3 a ream, you can get it from this supplier for $2.50 a ream? It's that kind of information that we're able to do, is just simply making people aware of an overall spend, what the categories of, what the pricings are on it, so they know where they are. Hey, I negotiated a bad contract. I'm spending $1 more for this than I need to, and that's a high use commodity. By just renegotiating that contract or going to a different supplier, I just found money for the corporation to use someplace else.
Yeah. I would imagine that an agency might contact Coupa, and there's got to be a case study before or after. I'm sure we can say, well, this is an organization, state government of Colorado, and this is a situation before. And it's almost like using those shopper agents on Amazon. Hey, don't pay
much, yeah.
So it's almost like a shopper agent. So what this enables you to do, so if you can save money just on the product itself, and all of a sudden save on encouraging people to use a contracted, procurement activities, this would total up to money that can help, in the end, the agency reach its mission, which is the shining light here from everyone who listens to this podcast is helping the agency reach the mission. What's the optimization? How do you optimize that budget? If you have a budget of $100, how do you optimize that? And my daughter Brittany can take $100 on her. She can fly to Spain and back. And I cost $100 to go downtown. But some people just have an ability to do that. And I think if you phrase it as help your agency reach its mission, all of a sudden everything falls in line.
Yeah. And one of the things that Coupa does is we interact with our prospective customers. We will do a business study with them where they provide us their actual business spend data. So information they have today. And we look at that and we run it through and say, if that spend has been run through Coupa, here's the savings that you can realize from it. And very honestly, we've had customers that have come back and looked at it and said, you guys are way too optimistic. No way could we save that kind of money for it. And we can go back and show, here's actual customers that have implemented Coupa that have realized this. And even with some of these studies that we've done, we go, okay, so we're optimistic about it. If we cut that in half, so if just 50% of what we're projecting, will that work for you? And they go, well, that's still huge savings. Yes, that would work for us.
Now we got to show me the money. I mean, this is what they're saying to you, Tom. They're saying, and you're showing them the money. You go from Tom Voshell to Tom Cruise. Yeah, there's the money.
And then we go one step beyond that as we say, we take that business case and put those metrics into the system that they can now measure themselves against what we said they would be able to achieve. They can see that, in fact, we are seeing that savings or that optimization of spend. They can measure it. So they have milestones to work against and report against, all of that. Those are the things that are missing with the current systems, and especially in the federal government. A lot of these systems are homegrown. They're custom built. They've been patched. And they're just there. So it's time, for them to move out into this new world. And business spend management is the fourth leg in the enterprise stool. You have your ERP, you have your HR system, you have your payroll system. Well, business spend, the spending of the money is the fourth leg in the stool of the major systems that you run an organization with.
Well, great. Well, it's a great angle we have today on implementing some of the digital transformation that I drone on about endlessly. Well, unfortunately, Tom, we're running out of time here. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. If you want more information about the company, it's coupa.com. And they have case studies there and all kinds of information about it. I'd like to thank my guest, Tom Voshell, Vice President, Federal Program Office for Coupa, COUPA.
Thank you, John. It's been a wonderful time.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.